Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, June the 17th, 2014. Beautiful sunny day here in Indianapolis. It is already 72 degrees. It is perfect weather. I don't know how you can get better than that. I'm not one for a lot of heat. I tend to migrate towards the cold side. So 72 degrees to me is absolutely spot on. My tomatoes will still grow, and I'm not dying of heat overload, but and we don't have 12 inches of snow outside, so what more could you ask for? It is, heads up, supposed to hit some sweltering highs across the Ohio Valley and the Mid-Atlantic regions over the next couple days. We're talking upwards of 100, 110 degrees they're calling for. So Atlanta, you will definitely turn into hot Atlanta, which you like to refer to yourselves to, quite a bit down there. Definitely, if you're not someone into heat, stay out of Atlanta, that's for sure. But, so you know what follows the sweltering heat, of course, is tornadoes. And our hearts go out to those in Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois. Last night, yesterday afternoon was a pretty rough time for a lot of people. A very rare, what they refer to as a rare double tornado hit a town in Nebraska yesterday and just totally destroyed it. So another good reason why your mindset and knowledge preps are 1 and 2 in my book, way before even water supplies, because if you don't have the mindset to survive anything, it doesn't really matter at that point whether you do or not, because you're probably not. And knowledge preps are light, easy to carry, always stay with you, nobody can take them from you. So definitely 2 of the top skills in my book. And then you get into the standard water, food, and shelter, fire, all of those things. But mindset, knowledge preps are number 1 and 2. So, and we obviously see the reason why. But again, eyes to the skies, pay attention to what's going on out there, because these little storms that pop up are, you can't really track them. I mean, we've got an idea of where they're going to be just because of cloud formation and things like that. But man, these things just come in out of the blue, and you have very little time to prepare for them. So, pulled a story off of a fellow prepared blogger this morning from Survival at Home. And what's your threat? Surviving a tornado. And I'll post a link for this into the chat room. But just for people out there listening, if you're not on social media, and won't hear this, here's what we have. What's a tornado? Tornadoes are nature's wrecking crew, no doubt, with winds that can level houses like Lincoln logs and toss cars like lawn darts. There is a great reason why the National Weather Service, as well as local authorities, tell you to take cover during such a storm. I think the storms yesterday, they were talking about upwards of 200-mile-per-hour winds. Even the line of storms that were predicted to come into Indiana yesterday were packing 70 to 80-mile-hour winds. So how often do you encounter that? Usually accompanied by thunder, lightning, heavy rain, and the potential for flash flooding, and what we've seen a lot of freak instances of this year, hailstones. And we're not talking the little piddly hail. We're talking significant soft baseball to softball size hail that a lot of areas have seen and have done a lot of damage. If the wind doesn't do more damage, there are plenty of other factors in these storms to worry about. But with such a destructive force looming on the horizon, how do we survive? What are the signs of a tornado? Meteorology isn't a perfect science, as we all know, as nature can sometimes change without warning. We saw that yesterday when I went to bed last night. They were predicting this line of 70 to 80 mile an hour storms to enter into Indiana and nail Indianapolis. Well, this morning I woke up and lo and behold, it has pretty much disintegrated. It might hit some northern parts of Indiana, but that's about it, and not the impact that it had yesterday. During inclement weather, staying alert to the sky is the best way to determine the possibility of a tornado. While I do not recommend you stand outside and look at the sky during a severe storm that could bring about a tornado, here are some things to look and listen for if you're stuck outside. Strong rotation in the cloud base, swirling dust and debris on the ground underneath the cloud base. Sometimes tornadoes have no funnel. Hail or heavy rain followed by either total calm or a fast, intense wind shift. Many tornadoes are accompanied by heavy precipitation and can't be seen. A loud, continuous rumble, often compared to the sound of a freight train. At night, small, bright blue, green, or white flashes at ground level near a thunderstorm, as opposed to silvery lightning up in the clouds. This could mean power lines are being snapped by very strong wind. So how to stay safe? When tornado season rolls around, there are two types of warnings. A tornado watch means the conditions are right for a tornado to happen, while a tornado warning means a tornado has been spotted. The moment you get a tornado watch alert, you should get ready. You may not get the warning. You should make sure to have an emergency radio handy in case the power goes out in your area, so you can monitor the situation with the weather until the weather clears. A lot of people have the little white weather radios that plug in. Get some battery backups for it. Just because it plugs in, if your power goes out, your weather radio is going to be useless. Better yet, and we have some of these up into our affiliate Amazon page, get yourself the hand-cranked, it's got a hand crank for power, and it also has a solar backup for power. It usually has a light on it too, to be used as a flashlight along with the weather radio. But definitely some things to have. But a word of warning, please don't 100% rely on the weather radio itself. We've seen in areas, it was a couple days ago in Indiana, they were warning people the weather radios were down. They couldn't get warning out to people. So you need to understand and be able to watch the sky and pay attention to what's going on and take action accordingly. Don't rely 100% on someone else to be able to do that for you. We post weather alerts all the time up on our Facebook page and get a lot of positive reaction back from that. Thanks for the heads up. I didn't know it wasn't on our local station, blah, 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 which is great. I think it's awesome, especially when I get people. We had a trucker in Texas one time that thanked me because he was getting ready to drive into that area and had no idea what was going on. And said we definitely did some good there by giving him a heads up, because he probably would have driven right into a tornado. But, I'm just one person. I can't cover the United States itself by myself. It's impossible. Same goes with any other person out there. Read the signs in nature that I just mentioned specifically, and know what's going on, and then take precautions accordingly. Whether or not where you go, we'll get to that in a minute. You're going to have to make those choices for yourself. If you have a storm shelter or a basement, take cover there. If not, go to the bottom floor of your home, find a small internal room like a closet or a small bathroom, and huddle in there. We've seen, though, in instances when these storms have bring an enormous amount of rain with them, where basements and whatnot have flooded, storm shelters have flooded, and people have drowned in them. So you're going to have to make that determination for yourself. Stay away from windows, as the winds from a tornado could shatter them and send glass flying like shrapnel fragments. If you remember, I remember in grade school, we'd have the tornado drills, and the first thing that they taught us way back then is that you had to open the windows on the top part of your house or in the school building. Specific kids were picked out of the group and told that if the tornado warning went off, that they had to run to the windows and open them. And now they're saying, do not open your windows. The old myth that opening your windows will equalize the pressure and keep a tornado from busting them out is totally false. If anything, you'll be putting yourself at greater risk rushing around trying to open all of your windows. So, keep up to date with the new safety standards. We do learn new things as time goes on. Funny how some of us have survived all these years, considering what we used to do when we were little. Keep your emergency radio tuned to a weather station and remain in your cover position until the storm passes. Just because it gets quiet outside does not mean the storm is over. In fact, it means it could only get worse. If you happen to be in a vehicle and spot a tornado, get out, find a ditch, culvert, or low area, and lie face down. Cars are not safe shelters in a tornado. Stay away from windows, as the winds from a tornado could shatter them and send glass flying from shrapnel fragments. So make a tornado plan. Always good to have a plan and work the plan. But just in case, you need to be able to ebb and flow with the tide if you have to. So if situations change, you need to be able to change with them. Don't get stagnant. But have a contingency plan ready in case of inclement weather. The better in your house you will use as crazy trying to figure out what to do at the last minute. Same way with your bug out bags. Are they packed and ready to go in case you need them? Make sure you have a few supplies in the area. Snacks, some water, emergency radio, and maybe a deck of cards if you're stranded there for any length of time. If you can't keep a few supplies in your shelter area, make sure you have a bug-in bag ready for such an occasion. Practice your shelter plan with your children on a regular basis, so when the time comes, you execute your plan without hesitation or issue. What can you have in your bug-out bag besides the emergency radio? Definitely a flashlight needs to be had by all parties involved. It could be anything from, the kind that straps on your head, which are great because it keeps your hands free, to some kind of self-protection flashlight. Anytime there's a downgrade situation, you can't protect yourself. People do stupid stuff, when they're trying to survive. So, the choice is yours, but at least act upon it. Put something together. But definitely stay safe over the next few days because things could get stupid and get stupid real fast. And like I said, anytime we have these high temperatures and looking at it, it's only going to last a few days. To get those temperatures down, we got to have some bad weather. But the core of the heat predicted is supposed to be run up alongside the East Coast, anywhere from just south of New York City down into Virginia, South Carolina, all those areas down through there. So, eyes to the skies. Don't want to lose anyone. Bad day yesterday. Our hearts and prayers go out to the people out there. But, all right, on to the next thing. 11 skills your great-grandparents had that you don't. And I thought this was awesome. First of all, it was on Ancestry.com, which is not known for having information like this, but definitely some cool information and stuff that you don't think about. So I had a reader email me because she could not read this. For some reason, the link would not open for her, so I told her I'd put it on the show and she could pick it up some other time when she gets a chance. But our parents and grandparents may shake their heads every time we grab our smartphones to get turn-by-turn directions or calculate the tip. But when it comes to life skills, our great-grandparents have us all beat. Here are some skills our great-grandparents had 90 years ago that most of us nowadays don't. Number one, which I found quite amusing, courting. While your grandparents and parents didn't have the option to ask someone out on a date via text message, it's highly likely that your great-grandparents didn't have the option of dating at all. Until well into the 1920s, modern dating didn't really exist. A gentleman would court a young lady by asking her or her parents for permission to call on the family. The potential couple would have a formal visit with at least one parent chaperone present, and the man would leave a calling card. If the parents and the young lady were impressed, he'd be invited back again, and that would be the start of their romance. I thought that was cute. We kind of follow along with that with our kids. Our daughter had a blind date, if you want to call it that, a couple weeks ago. And, the young man got tortured, I can tell you that, but he didn't pass out, and they still talk. And I think that the young man coming into the house, meeting the family, the whole 9 yards is definitely a must. Very apprehensive if my daughter were ever to go out without me meeting people. And I think she's been raised to know better. But if you could, too, we need a moment of silence right now in deep prayer, because my daughter has just left to go take her driver's test. So I'm warning you all right now. She's going to be on the road, and just stay safe out there. Number 2, hunting, fishing, and foraging. Every city dweller in your great-grandparents' generation had experience hunting, fishing, and foraging for food. Did you hear that? Every city dweller. If your great-grandparents never lived in a rural area or lived off the land, their parents probably did. Being able to kill, catch, or find your own food was considered an essential life skill, no matter where one lived, especially during the Great Depression. Number 3, butchering. In this age of the boneless, skinless chicken breast, it's unusual to have to chop up a whole chicken at home, let alone a whole cow. Despite the availability of professionally butchered and packaged meats, knowing how to cut up a side of beef or butcher a rabbit from her husband's hunting trip was an ordinary part of a housewife's skill set in the early 20th century. This didn't leave the men off the hook, though. After all, they were most likely the ones who would field dress any animals they killed. Number 4, bartering. Before the era of shopping malls and convenience stores, it was more common to trade goods and services with neighbors and shop owners. Home canned goods, homemade furniture, other do-it-yourself goods were currency your great-grandparents could use in lieu of cash. Number 5 is haggling. Though it'd be futile for you to argue with the barista at Starbucks about the price of a cup of coffee, your great-grandparents were expert hagglers. Back when corporate chains weren't as ambiguous, it was a lot easier to bargain with local shop owners and tradesmen. Chances are your great-grandparents bought very few things from a store anyways. Number 6, darning and mending. Nowadays, if a sock gets a hole in it, you buy a new pair. But your great-grandparents didn't let anything go to waste, not even a beat-up old sock. This went for every other article of clothing as well. Darning socks and mending clothes was just par for the course. Number 8, corresponding by mail. Obviously, your great-grandparents didn't text or email. However, even though the telephone existed, it wasn't the preferred method of staying in touch either, especially long distance. Handwritten letters were the way they communicated with loved ones and took care of business. Number 8, making lace. Tatting, the art of making lace, was a widely popular activity for young women in your great-grandparents' generation. Elaborate lace collars, doilies, and other decorative touches were signs of sophistication. However, fashion changed and technology made lace an easy and inexpensive to buy, so their children probably didn't pick up the skill. Sad. 9, lighting a fire without matches. Sure, matches have been around since the 1600s, but they were dangerous and toxic, sparking wildly out of control and emitting hazardous fumes. A more controllable, non-poisonous match wasn't invented until 1910. So great-grandma and great-grandpa had to know a thing or two about lighting a fire without matches. 10, diapering without cloth. With cloth. Yeah, you definitely want with cloth. Disposable diapers weren't commonly available until the 1930s. Until then, cloth diapers held with safety pins were where babies did their business. Great-grandma had a lot of unpleasant laundry on her hands. And number 11, writing with a fountain pen. While it's true that your grandparents were skilled in the lost art of writing in cursive, your grandparents probably were too. However, the invention of the ballpoint pen in the late 1930s and other advances in pen technology mean that your great-grandparents were probably the last generation who had to refill their pens with ink. It's sad you go back through this list. Looking at it, courting just doesn't happen anymore. Half the time, families don't even meet people until sometimes months into a relationship. Hunting, fishing, foraging, you have to have a special license from the government to be able to do. You get into bartering, the government's trying to make that illegal, and it already is in certain parts of the country. Haggling is frowned upon, depending on where you're at. But you want to go to some kind of flea market or someplace like that, you can still practice that. Darning and mending, don't forget here, the socks that our great-grandparents and even our parents wore were definitely made out of different material than some of the stuff you buy in the stores nowadays. Does not mean that they can't be mended. You have to look at definitely what the material is. Corresponding by mail, I actually still correspond by mail with some people. It's like Christmas in the mailbox. I also belong to the Seed of the Month Club, too, which I think is awesome. And I'll post the link up on our Facebook page. But it's a guy that every month will send out 3 packets of seeds, 3 to 4 packets of seeds, and you never know what you're going to get. And even my kids get excited now because they'll see the envelope in the mail, and they're like, well, I wonder what we got this time, and we'll open it up. And a lot of times it's made us, plant things that we normally wouldn't, which I think is awesome. And then we'll talk about it with the kids and what it is, and it's a great thing. Seeds of the Month Club. Making lace, I remember my great-grandparents having the little lace doilies all over the place in the house and whatnot. It's sad because I don't have any of those, and I don't know if they've been handed down to anyone, but, it'd be nice to have something like that your grandparents or great-grandmother made herself. Lighting a fire without matches. It's funny, a lot of people didn't realize that the match as we know it came about in 1910 and not any time before that. You think of the old pioneers and stuff, and I don't know, most people automatically think they had big lighters and matches the way we know it, but they didn't, and they survived. Well, that's a thing that a lot of people, I think, forget. They think about a downgrade situation and they go into this panic mode and they're like, oh my goodness, how are we going to make it? We won't have electricity and stuff. Electricity hasn't been here that long. A lot of people have lived before us without it, and we can do it. We just have to have, like I said, the mindset to do it. And the more you learn about your past and the history and these kind of things, the less fear there is. The more knowledge you build about these kind of things, the less fear there is, and the less panic there is. So challenge yourself to learn a new skill. There are, a lot of challenges out there. People, we're going to learn 12 new skills this year. 1 new skill a month, we're going to teach our children. I think that's great. I think you should speed it up a bit, but I don't think it takes an entire month to learn a new skill. But I guess if you're a family where both parents work and you really only see each other maybe 1 or 2 days a week, that might take that long, sadly. Diapering with cloth. 1930s is when disposable diapers, not in my family. I still, even my kids growing up, utilize cloth diapers. It's a lot cheaper, a lot better. In the landfills, that's for sure. But I still, as part of my preps, I stockpile cloth diapers. They can be used for just a plethora of things, not just, to collect pee and poop. Not that that's a bad thing, but other reasons for them too. They're great in your medical supply kit because they do absorb quite a bit. That's what they're designed for. Writing with a fountain pen. Do not do that. Might have to pick that up just for shits and giggles. But definitely, my daughter and I were talking about writing in cursive, and how with technology today, she goes, her handwriting since she's gotten out of school and is in college is going downhill. And for an artist, that's a lot, She takes pride in that kind of stuff. But she doesn't practice it every day like our parents and our grandparents used to do. So calligraphy, those kind of things. I have an aunt who's just had gorgeous calligraphy when she'd write letters. Definitely something to keep alive and well out there. So, next thing. So for the lady that could not open, I'm not going to name names, but she couldn't open the link for that. That's what that story was about that we posted on our page. We're down to about 30 minutes. So something that I wanted to get into and wanted to share. And it's not often that I get terribly excited, but yesterday I will say that I did. I purchased a book on a whim. And as everybody knows, I'm a bit of a book whore. We have bookshelves that my husband has built all over our home. And they're pretty filled up. And I tell him all the time, it's extra insulation in the wintertime on the outside walls. And besides that, books can be pretty bulletproof sometimes. So, we have, I justify them quite well, I think. But purchased this book on a whim, and quite happy that I did. It came in the mail yesterday, and I've spent quite a bit of time already going through it. But for anybody that's trying to be self-reliant and live off the grid, I think that this book needs to be in your library. And not very often do I endorse a book entirely. But it's called The Resilient Farm and Homestead, an innovative permaculture and whole systems design approach. And the author's name is Ben Falk. And I might have to track him down and have him on the show. But absolutely love this book so far. Let's see here. It is, where are we at here? Oh, let's see, almost 300 pages. Oh yeah, easily 300 pages with the index and whatever and everything. But 300 pages, a very nice looking book. Lots of pictures for you people that like pictures out there. But it goes into a plethora of information. And some of this I wanted to share with you. And, my fascination with permaculture, which makes it even better. But if you're looking at starting any kind of homestead to be self-reliant, highly endorse this book. The system that he talks about in the book itself is built on a piece of property in Vermont that's approximately only 10 acres, because a lot of people get caught up in the fact, I need hundreds of acres to be able to survive and blah, 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 and actually you don't. So while it's nice to have, do you actually need it, that much acreage? No, you don't. So anyways, he built this self-sustaining permaculture homestead in Vermont, like I said, with 10 acres. But some things in the book I wanted to share with you. First thing is how the wilderness context informs a resilient lifestyle. And this is written by the author. So it says, when I trace my inclination toward preparedness, I always find a link to my time in the backcountry travel and living experiences. Living life on expeditions, from a summer of skis, crossing an ice field in Alaska, to weeks climbing mountains or paddling on lakes. All of these experiences have a commonality. During journeys in the backcountry, one is in constant anticipation of conditions that can change at any point in time. Such a change is simply a given, whether it's a storm that will test the soundness of your tent's rigging or your retreat plan off the mountain you attempt to climb. In such situations, you learn basic and crucial skills in observation and awareness, judgment and decision-making, decisive action and determination. Although true wilderness experiences are less a part of my life today, their role as a central theme in my own development has been crucial. Anyone, especially those in college and younger, stands to gain immeasurably by wilderness experience and any other expeditionary-like journeys in which humans push their comfort zone and rely upon themselves, test themselves, and ultimately learn what they are made of. Through encounters with elements in the more than human world, we can see the reality of life on this planet, which is often hidden from us but remains a basic fact of existence. The world around has always changed, sometimes rapidly, and it will do so again. Life in a tent, out of a backpack, and in the open exposes us to such change, brings it to the fore. While living outdoors, we have few buffers separating us from these adverse influences. Our daily life in the front country, back in civilization, is filled with conveniences that, while enjoyable, distance us from the changing nature of the world around us. This affords us a certain degree of comfort, time savings, and other advantages, but comes at a severe cost, one of which is losing a certain degree of personal reliance and the skills needed to be highly self-reliant. These include acute environmental awareness and response. In civilization, much of those and other skills simply aren't needed. You don't need to watch the weather because the weather is totally irrelevant to the question of where you're going to sleep for the night or how you're going to prepare dinner. Expand that irrelevance to many spheres of your life, and you can see how rapidly and profusely life in the comforts of civilization dumbs down our capacities simply by removing the need for many of them. When you practice, you become good at. What you don't, you gradually lose competence in. This is not to say that some lifestyles in the front country don't demand certain and highly developed skills and awareness. Some do. But for the most part, our homes, cars, computers, and other comforts retard the development of fundamental awareness capacities that are necessary to think about, plan for, and act on a future that is guaranteed to be saturated with change. The take-home message here is that we become proficient at what we practice, and we tend to practice most intensely based upon needs. We can intentionally place ourselves into environments where meeting basic and constantly shifting and challenging basic needs is required of us. This is, in part, what a wilderness, or unmeditated by human systems, experience offers all of us. The learning and growth opportunities lying within them are deeply practical and endlessly rewarding. So how true? I mean, just, that's one of on page 5. I thought that was awesome. And so something we don't talk about is how, we're talking about self-reliance all the time, especially people in the city, let's say, but how often did they get out and practice the skills that are needed? How often do you put yourself in situations? It goes as simple as go out and turn your electric off. Turn it off for a day and see, how everyone would respond. Then turn it off for a weekend. Go for a week and see what happens. You won't know until you try. But absolutely love that little couple paragraphs that he had written there. So the book goes on into, it describes the situation and the different zones in the area that he's doing his little homestead on. Lots and lots of information. Very easy to read. And like I said, for those of you that like pictures, there's plenty of charts and photographs and drawings and all kinds of stuff. But he goes into all the needs, what to look for in your homestead, what to evaluate, and whatnot. But I hit another chapter back here on page 82 in the Water and Earthworks. Assessing your water budget via a 5-gallon bucket. I thought this was awesome. Leaving a bucket outside for a year, an entire year, tells you a lot about the brittleness of your location. Here in the northern hardwood forest of New England, a bucket usually fills up within 4 to 5 months and stays full for the rest of the year, dropping 3 to 10 inches or so in most growing seasons. This can be very significant. However, in the summer of 2012, a full bucket evaporated by about 50% by the end of the summer. And it goes on to say, here's an easy water assessment strategy that anyone can afford to do, and some of us have even done without meaning to. Leave a 5-gallon bucket or a similar water-holding container outdoors across the year. Make sure it is in an open area that receives the sunshine and precipitation affecting the area. Now neglect it. Make sure it doesn't fall over, and observe what happens over the course of the year. Here in central Vermont, our buckets fill up within 2 to 3 months, then stay full, dropping an inch or a few or so every now and then in a dry July or August, then overflowing again before becoming a block of ice sometime in November or December. This simple test speaks volumes about your region's climate and your site's unique microclimate. If the bucket fills and stays full or even half full, you're in a water-rich part of the world. If the bucket remains empty and fills only part way before emptying again, you are in an arid zone. Everyone else falls somewhere in between. Pay particular attention to the times when the bucket is empty or full. That means you have a drought or overflow situation. The bucket tells you what is happening in the water table, but remember that the table itself is much more delayed in its response than the bucket. During those times of the year when the bucket is empty, the table will be dropping, and the opposite will be true when it's full. On the surface of the ground, you want to ensure that as much water is captured as possible throughout the year to create a bucket full situation. This way, plants are not limited by water scarcity, and it's available for all those others. It's available for all other uses, which you'll go in, which is talked about further in the book. Consider yourself lucky if the bucket is half full or more most of the year. That puts you in the slim minority of an increasingly water-stressed, drought-prone world. So I think I'm going to slightly insert this into my homeschooling for my son, and have him observe this bucket. And Captain Kringo, I just happened to pop over to the chat room, mentioned that it becomes a mosquito nursery. Yes, it could very well do that, but there are ways to avoid that. So definitely something that you need to look out for is you don't want to be harvesting mosquitoes, but there are, like I said, there are definite things that you can do to make sure that that does not happen. And I hate when I do that, is I go into the chat room. I just want to say hi to everybody, good morning to everybody that's here, but can't talk and read at the same time. It's bad enough that I can even talk this early in the morning, but wanted to say good morning to everyone. And look forward to seeing some of you this evening, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're going to play some Conflicted tonight, and with the usual group. And we do have a special guest. He was on Primer Time last week, but Jason Juarez is going to join us tonight and see what unique perspective he can come up with. But talked to him via Skype last night. Going to talk to him a little bit today. He's got a sling bow that's quite fascinating, that definitely interested in purchasing one from him, or maybe, 2 or 3. But my husband is fascinated with slingshots to begin with. We did get him one for Father's Day. And luckily it came in on time. It came in on Saturday because I was sweating it there for a minute. But I'll have to take pictures too, because Eddie built a nice little contraption that we have out in the back porch, on the backyard, or wherever he decides to put it, that captures the little BBs and marbles and Lord knows whatever else that he uses to shoot with sometimes. But the man popped out the sewing machine and built himself a little wood frame, and he's got a little thing going on out there in the backyard. It's a cool thing. The kids are all involved in it too, so I think it helps when your parents are just as nutty as the kids are sometimes. But he's getting ready to change the wooden base over to metal, so that way he doesn't have to worry about it so much, because the wood base itself he can't really leave outside in the weather. But I'll take pictures and post that a little bit later. But join us again tonight, 11 o'clock, for some Conflicted. And FYI, the iPhone app is out. It's posted up on our Facebook page. And definitely some good stuff. For those of us who are on Droid, we have to wait for a little bit longer. But JD assures us that in about 30 days or so, we should have a Droid app for the Conflicted game. But back to this book. Like I said, lots and lots of information in here. It goes into utilizing urine, human urine, biochar, a lot of stuff. A lot of books out there won't even touch upon. It goes into, growing mushrooms and all that good stuff. But the cool thing I thought was, and I've seen this homestead before and didn't realize it until I got this book, but he talks about growing rice. He's built in Vermont his little paddy fields for rice, but then he also talks about growing it in buckets too, with lots of examples and how to do that and whatnot. I thought that was awesome. It goes into, water cycling, how to collect water, mechanical systems, wells, all of the necessary pieces and parts of a homestead. And then in the back, it has a assessing resiliency aptitude test that you can actually score yourself on. And it goes into a lot of skill areas, and some of these, a lot of people, hesitate on. Am I useful to neighbors? I make or do something that they need. I can generate a surplus. I am well liked. I am a long-time resident of this area with many social connections and am well liked here. I am financially well off without debt and can purchase most tools and other resources I need. I can organize people well and or work well with any group setting. And that's in the social economic section. And then it goes into personal and psychological, food, fuel, and heat, physical health, various skills, crafting, vehicles, construction, ecological awareness and literacy, safety. And then it goes into, he's developed an outline for a homestead curriculum, a crucial skill list for emergencies, tools and materials that you could possibly need or be on the lookout for, and homestead vulnerability checklist and strategy summary to reduce vulnerability and acute events. And then he has a whole nice vocabulary and concepts. So going back to the beginning, if I were to look up the chapters here in the book, chapter 1 is creating a positive legacy while adapting to rapid change. And I know that's one thing that preparedness people, survivalists, whatever you want to call us, get caught up into. We learn about an issue, and then we get prepared for it. But then we forget that it's not always going to work out the way that we prepared for. And then we fail a lot of times in adapting to the change. And that's when bad things happen. Or we have to become very fasted at adapting to the change itself. Even little things. I've talked about it before in the past. I go on vacation. I have a set amount of things that I want to accomplish while I'm on vacation. And, at the end of my vacation, I'm pissed off because I didn't get half the stuff done that I wanted to because different things, happened. It changed, and it made me angry. Think about in a downgrade situation, the emotional turmoil that it's going to have on people. It's not going to be life as we know it, and how that's going to change personalities. There's going to be a lot of angry people out there, and when you start, living by emotions like that, you have a tendency to do things that you might not normally do. It brings stress on your family. It brings stress on your relationships with your spouse. I have the benefit of being able to step back and evaluate. It's one thing that a lot of people don't do is self-evaluation. Why am I mad? Why am I upset right now? And being able to adapt to change, to things not working out the way that you want them to. We need to work on those kind of things now and roll with it, because if not, life is going to be miserable if not. I was going to say miserable to begin with, but a lot of us think that if a downgrade situation happens, it's not going to be, other than the human factor in it, if we can take out the human factor, it's not going to be all that bad. It's going to be the way our grandparents were raised, our great-grandparents. Can we live without electricity? Yeah, it's been proven. There are millions of people before us that did it. The biggest issue in a downgrade situation is the human factor. And a lot of humans are going to get very stupid, become very angry, are going to want things that other people have. And that's really the biggest issue. So back to the book. Chapter 2, the design process and site establishment. He goes into at least a dozen subcategories here of looking at, especially if you're looking at buying a piece of property, which Eddie and I have talked about here. So a lot of good information there and things, what to look for, analyzing your land, and things like that. So chapter 3 is about water and earthworks and locating water, gravity feed systems, flowing in and infiltrating water. It goes on from there. Chapter 4, fertility and harvesting and cycling. Compost, urine, human manure, and biochar, like I said, goes into developing a whole mushroom system. Remineralization, something that we all need to have information on. Cover cropping, winter cover, tall grass grazing, pasture reclamation, the benefits of mowing. It goes into scything, ducks, chickens, dogs, and sheep, grazing, crop information, those kind of things. Let's see, chapter 5 is food crops, perennials, plants, the whole permaculture thing, annual fruits, growing food as a response to toxicity. We've talked about that many times, how most of the food in the grocery stores, probably 90% of it, is not good for you. Our bodies are designed to heal themselves. When we start feeding them unhealthy things like soda and junk food, potato chips, and SpaghettiOs, ravioli, macaroni and cheese, those kind of things, it clogs our systems. So one of the things I'm working hard on this year is, that's my biggest prep. But it goes into food storage and processing. Chapter 6, adaptive fuel and shelter, using wood for your main heat source, adaptive shelter, mechanical systems, passive supply of water for the resilient home. Chapter 7, resilience and regeneration for the long haul. And it goes into talking about biospheric toxicity, growing health and body-mind resilience, not just calories, and then money. One important means to get work done, and then staying where you're at. Basically, building your little piece of heaven here on earth, if you can call it that. But definitely chock full of information if you're looking at being self-reliant on a piece of property. A must-have for your preparedness library. And like I said again, it's by Ben Falk. Definitely a great book to have. I already got it bookmarked quite well through. Spent a couple hours on it last night, but get the book if you can, and especially if you have a piece of property you're looking at designing. It utilizes permaculture a lot. It talks about swales. It talks about building a fruit forest, nut forest, utilizing swales at the same time, which means that, geez, you don't have to worry about watering it. Nature takes care of itself. You can utilize some of these practices, quite honestly, in a suburban area. We've talked a lot about in the past, growing a garden when you have an HOA is almost impossible. It's against their laws. But there are ways around that. You can make your garden part of your landscaping if you do it correctly, I should say. I'll use that disclaimer out there. Next thing you know, I'll be getting nasty emails from people. I planted a tomato plant in my front yard and got in trouble for it, which is sad to say, but it happens all the time. And we need to start standing up more and more to that. We've seen instances over the past few years of the government takeover of our being able to be self-sustaining and grow our own gardens and collect rainwater and such. It's a proven fact that collecting rainwater isn't going to necessarily impact the water tables because only 30% of the rainwater really reaches down in there anyways. But we need to be able to stand up as a whole to the government because it's just getting out of hand. I think we all can agree with that. Can we do it alone? It's a lot harder to do. So the more and more people that actually stand up together, I think the better impact that we can have on these kind of things. We should have the ability to be self-sustainable. So we are down to the last 5 minutes. Another show down and gone. Another month is practically over. It's been an eventful 2014 already. We will have, like I said, tonight at 11 o'clock, we're going to be playing Conflicted, what's coming up in the future. I need to start reaching out to people because if you have someone that you know that wants to be in our Conflicted show, I am currently putting together an itinerary for the rest of the year. So if you have a guest or you would like to be a guest on the show, give me a heads up. You can email me or find me on Facebook or anything like that. Email me at propertics@yahoo.com. Facebook, just send me a private message on one of the pages. And I usually check it multiple times during the day when I'm out and about. So, like I said, if you're interested or know someone that's interested, let me know. Or if you'd like to say, hey, I'd like to hear from so-and-so, Mom with the Prep. You want to be on the show, we would be more than happy to speak with that person and try and sweet talk her into being on the show again. So I think she did a great job. I want to say good morning to her. Sharon Homestead, always glad to see you. Vince, Lady Pitbull, Captain Gringo, Salvanor. You guys are awesome. Hecty, Jules, good morning to you. I'm assuming you're going to be popping in here soon, or if you haven't already. Zori should be coming up soon. But a big thanks to Jules and everything she does here at UCY.tv. Definitely a lot of great hosts here. If you haven't reached out and picked up some of the shows, let's see, I got a thumbs up from Mom. We'll get that booked and have her on the show. She's always great fun and definitely has some insight, especially when prepping with children. So something that we all want to protect. A huge commodity. I'm a little nervous thinking about my daughter out there. Lady Pitbull coming on the Conflicted Show. Sounds like a plan, lady. Just give me a date, a Tuesday when you're free, and we'll make sure that happens. See, she got me distracted there, so I'm not so nervous about my daughter. But hopefully she comes back here soon and she has her driver's license. We have not forced our children at all to get their driver's license when they turn 16. I question whether these kids should have them. Our oldest was 18 when he got his. Callie's now 19. We look at maturity levels, and, not saying that it's easy. They've all had jobs that we've had to transport them back and forth to. But, what's in the best interest of your children? What keeps them the safest? Don't force yourself to comply with society out there. Just because they do it does not mean that you should do it. I think it's kept our kids safer and been more responsible. Our kids have a good work ethic because, we make sure they get to work on time and back. So, and we do talk to their employers, or we used to anyways. Our youngest is 13, so he hasn't yet forayed himself into the workforce, but we'll see what happens between now and then. He's still just a youngin', and he's going to spend, I think, the rest of the summer observing a 5-gallon bucket in the backyard. I think that's going to be an interesting experiment, to say the least, for him. And I'm just going to keep just mumbling on here for the next minute or so because, got done a little bit faster than I anticipated. And so I want to wish you guys all a very safe and a very happy Tuesday. And I hope to see you guys later tonight for some fun times and some good questions. Might have to improvise a little bit tonight. Our guest has developed a sling bow, which is quite fascinating. It's an awesome little thing he's got going on here. But great little survival tool. He said it